Johan,
Yeah,
you are
muted.
I'm on mute. So, welcome, Olivier. Welcome, Vaclav. You've been a bit in the waiting area, but I think there's some interesting things to talk about, things that came this afternoon. Also, interesting results from the poll that are, to me, a bit striking, and we will get certainly back to that. First of all, maybe, Olivier, I might give the word to you. What's the journey that Hyundai has done in there? Yeah, because you've got a bit of history certainly as well in hybrid electric vehicles, plugins, and everything. So how is the journey gone? And used cars, how has this come into, and how do you see things?
Hyundai launched the first EV in 2016, and we had a strong product plan. So we had also a visibility of what would come in the next year. So we had the clear vision that we had to anticipate the needs, because to sell a new EV was at that time different than selling a new ICE already. And we could see that the same problem would also come for EVs. So we wanted to develop a program future-proofed. We asked many customers. We made focus group. We asked the dealers, we asked national sales company, distributors, and as I said, a lot, 80 customers, EV used car customers in Europe, to ask them what they expect in the future, what they expect from us, and how we can support them going to EV. And that the result is Hyundai Promise, which we launched in 2020 with a dedicated promises for EVs, but the same treatment for a customer if he wants an EV or if he wants an ICE. A specific support, but the same promise.
Okay, so I think so. Part of the thinking from your side was we need to ensure that the process for the used car customer is as advanced as if they buy basically a brand new.
They need the
vehicle.
same support. Okay. The idea was that they need the same support for from the salesman. And at Hyundai, we have launched Charge My Hyundai for charging infrastructure valid in Europe, and the same support we want to give to our EV customers. And this was clear from the beginning. We want to give them advice on wallbox charging infrastructure, charging solutions, to help them coming to EV, because they were lost as well as used cars for new cars.
Yeah, I think this is also what we see if we go online. Basically, you have new vehicles, you look at EVs, there's a lot of explanation maybe on cost of ownership, on wall boxes, on all the things that give you confidence. Then you go over to a used car area, and then it falls in the very traditional used car locator thing. So indeed, that should basically a mirror. That's it. Okay, Vaclav, you're happy to have you here, because of course that's a complete different angle almost. You're a performance brand, quite young. You are probably also the youngest amongst the speakers that we have seen as well. But how do you see it, and what's the status of your exploration, let's say, it with Polestar?
First of all, good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here. I think that Hyundai doesn't need any introduction. On the other hand, Polestar, we are the new kid on the block. We are the new brand, as you mentioned, Johan.
Yeah.
Pure performance, sustainability, those are one of our core values. I thought that it would be worth to provide just a little bit of context of what is our sales approach and what is our operational setup. So we are part of the Volvo Group, HQ in Sweden. We started our new car sales mid of 2020, so quite young, but we are already seeing that some of the short cycle vehicles are entering the used car market. What is, I think, most important is to mention that our business model is very different. So we don't have dealers. We have partners who are operating our brand and product experience centers in various countries. And we have a very strong focus on selling online. So if you want to buy a Polestar, the only way to do it is to buy it online when we talk about new vehicles. This has required us to to have a very different approach to remarketing, because traditionally, for all brands, most remarketing related operations are handled by the dealers, and since we don't have them, we had to build our own e-commerce platform, where currently we are selling directly. So we own our own stock and we sell it to the end customers in the markets. But it is also developed in a way so that in the future we can connect a selected group of partners who can also sell on that same platform, and we as a brand could guarantee the same customer experience as we offer the customers for new cars. So that those are the most important elements that I think need to be mentioned in order to provide context to what I'm going to say further.
Okay.
So the transaction is happening online. So the e-commerce piece is really important. We want to give the customer convenience in not having the need to go to a dealer or haggle around the new car or the used car price. So the prices are fixed. And we believe that is the future. Corona actually accelerated the online purchases worldwide for various different consumer goods, as it did also for vehicles. So people are less and less worried to handle a larger amount transactions online. That of course puts some constraints on how we can sell those cars. So we don't offer test drive of the car. If you want to experience a vehicle, you can test drive a car, which is probably a question, how do they sell the cars? On the other hand, we provide a 2-week satisfaction guarantee to the customer to build the trust and confidence that if he doesn't like the vehicle, he has the right to return it and cancel the transaction, and all the money will be refunded fully. So this is our approach, how to get around the not having the physical compounds where you can kick the tires and talk to a salesman and then sit around a table and try to push the price down. So we believe that is the future, and we see with the first experiences that it is valued and it is appreciated by the customers, as our customer satisfaction around the first used cars that we have put on offer is pretty high.
Okay, you've done quite some research as well to understand used car customers. What was the key takeout on? Are they different, and what does it mean for the sales process of used EVs?
So the first answer to that, overcoming the customer concerns of switching from an ICE vehicle to an electric vehicle, I think they are same for new car buyers as for used car buyers, and it has to be the same communication. They are getting into a new type of technology there. On the other hand, in the used car market, the used car buyers are slightly more conservative in terms of they want the car to be proven, the technology to be proven. They have their concerns stepping into something new. Of course, there are related questions to what is the battery state of health, how the car was charged, how many charging cycles did it have, was it only going into the fast charging or charging in the front yard at home overnight, which is the healthiest way of charging an electric car. So, on one hand, it's the same concerns as for new cars. On the other hand, used car buyers are a little bit more conservative on their purchase, and they are not really the pioneers in terms of adopting new technologies. I think that's something that needs to be mentioned.
This will change because you speak about the early adapters, so the first commerce UEV. But this will change because in a few years the EV will be the normal customer, and they are eventually a little bit more conservative, but they are normal customers. The profile will totally change. And also we don't have the same customer group as well.
We will come to the new normal for sure. Since 2 years back now, everybody is investing into electric vehicle technology. There is not a single OEM who's not looking into it. for various reasons, as discussed in the previous presentations during this afternoon. So I do agree that it will become the new normal going forward. On the other hand, there are plenty of people who would love to have an electric car, but simply cannot afford to buy a new one. So we are lowering the entry point to the brand by offering the customer a used electric vehicle, which is more affordable, yet we give them the same confidence. Okay, I'm buying it directly from the brand. So the car has been checked, the battery is in a good shape, the car has a full service history, only the trained technicians have handled the car when refurbishing and preparing for the next cycle. So those are the key points on that matter.
There's an we have here an interesting expert debate, but in the chat there's also a small debate going on, honestly speaking. When Dirk Marco asked the question, when we've got 10-year warranty, why do we still need an independent SOH? And then there are a lot of comments coming like, yeah, independent is okay. No, it needs to be independent. So coming back to this state of health, Olivier, what do you think? Because of course, the CARA working group is working on an independent one, which probably lease companies would require an independent used car salespeople. At Hyundai, you also have got a state of health that you create, and the debate that's going here a bit, is this enough for it's almost like the used car salesman explaining, yeah, it's okay, which used car salesmen don't have the best reputation normally with customers. So how you see the state of health evolving?
Yes, so we have in our promises for electrified vehicles or EV, the battery state of health certification. This is something that customers requested already 2 years ago and that we have introduced, but we are luckily able to do it on our own because our workshop tools, our computer in the network, they can test the battery capacity for Hyundai products, only for Hyundai products. Honestly, we don't have the feeling that it's not enough for customers, because when they come to Hyundai, they trust the dealer because we know the product, we know the brand, we are representative. So for us, it's totally enough. For an independent trader or another brand selling a Hyundai, it might be necessary to have a multi-brand tool. I understand, but for a brand dealer, a brand solution is enough.
Okay. How do you see this at Polestar, Vaclav?
Battery state of health is, I think, super important. I think that both the independent entities like TIF or DECRA, same as the OEMs, need to work jointly on that subject. One important thing that I see going forward is that all the cars are connected. So over-the-air updates enable us to read out data from the vehicles around customer behavior, charging cycles, and so on. So we need to learn from the real life customer behaviors in order to understand how to optimize the battery performance going forward. It is not only the capacity, but also the speed of charging, the temperature, the number of charging cycles, number of fast charging cycles, and so on. So I think that's going to give all OEMs a huge opportunity to optimize, and we could also optimize the software in the car that is managing the battery. So with the software updates, there are quite a few things that can be done going forward to limit extremes, to monitor battery temperature, and so on. So I think there are plenty of opportunities. We are working on that subject together with our mothership Volvo, as we are sharing the service network with them and many of the service tools. And Volvo is also moving towards full electric. So that is a joint effort internally. Currently, we are running the sort of the famous 100-point multi-point checklist before offering the car to the customer. And we are also checking whether there are any issues with the battery. What is interesting is, maybe for the wider audience, is that if there is a problem with one of the battery cells that is actually originating from the production, this is usually discovered within the first 6 months. So after the first 6 months, the battery performance remains the same or very stable. So actually buying a pre-owned electric vehicle in some way is quite safe, or even safer than a new car. Of course, that we have very stringent quality standards to what car can leave the factory, but in a way, this has been proven. And if the battery performs well within the first 6 to 12 months, it's gonna perform pretty well for the following years.
Yes, this is something we can predict also for the future. The battery state of health might become less important in the future, because it was very important at the beginning. People were afraid comparing a mobile phone to a car. And the first generation of EV, or even the second generation, had a low range of 200, 160 kilometers. If you lose 20% of capacity, it's huge. But the current EVs, they have 450, 500 kilometers range. If you lose 10%, you still have a lot of range in front of you. So maybe in the future, people will be will have less questions, as they will see that, as we see in the branch, we are all professional here, and there are not that many problems on EV batteries.
Yeah, I agree. Ian, is that not a bit the challenge in perception? I've always said in the past, when I was working at an OEM, we're all working in automotive, so we are not the right persons most of the time to ask things to. Is there not a perception challenge? I think it was one of the questions, and there partially agreed was 70% that agreed that perception of customers is not completely in line with reality. In Norway, it has taken them as well 9 years before the average customer now says it's okay. So do we need to do still something to accompany the sale for the first years? Ian, what do you think?
I think we do in the first instance, and I think there's some really good comments just come back. Olivier referred to it when you asked him about state of health certificate. Does it need to be independent, or can it be dedicated just to Hyundai? The reality is, all the evidence at the moment says that customers are concerned about longevity of the battery and its ability to charge. So I think as an industry, we owe it to them to give them some kind of peace of mind. I also agree with Olivier, and in terms of, I don't think it matters whether it's an independent certification or if it's an OEM certificate. The thing that is important is that they're the same, and that the things that they state are the same. Because as a consumer, if you're comparing a Hyundai that's being offered by the Hyundai retail network, and you're looking at one that's being offered, for instance, by a fleet or leasing company or an independent, from a consumer point of view, we just want it to be simple. And it's like looking at fuel consumption figures or CO2 emissions, isn't it? If we've got two sets of measurements, they need to be the same, so that the customer can make an informed choice based on the information that we provide. To answer the latter part of your question, Johan, do we need it? The industry experts are saying not. But the reality is, the perception of customers at this stage is it's still smoke and mirrors. Electric vehicles are still, for most people, slightly scary. It's not what they're used to. And absolutely, just as the guys have said, in I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years' time, it will be the norm. And we won't need the same level of, if you like, of security. But right now, we're talking about people transitioning from a drivetrain that they've been used to for 20, 30, 40, 50 years into something which is seen as being completely new. And I think it's reasonable that as an industry, we hold their hands through some of that process and reassure them.
Another aspect that came in as a question, used cars are sold by, let's say, the salespeople, and why should customers basically believe what a used car salesman says? That's a bit a very short summary of what was in that chat or question. But what has been seen or done to bring the salespeople of the dealers up to a certain standard, or what needs to be adjusted? What's the experience on that point, Olivier? from
say,
coaching, training, whatever. Yeah.
yes, as we launched the program, the CPO program, the program was defined, but there were still a lot of things to be done. And one of these strategic aspects was to take the salesman with us. So we developed training, online training, and tutorials for the salesman to understand first the Hyundai promises, and then the specific promises for EVs. What are the difference and how it has to be done? At the same time, we have created guidelines, of course, but you know guidelines are created and stay on other places than on the salesman deck. So it was very necessary to train the salesman to explain carefully what customers expect, that they can understand, okay, we do this, we offer this because it's expected, and then to refresh regularly the salesman's knowledge with training. It's really key. On the other hand, to be honest, I'm sure they cannot understand all the technologies for all cars, all brands, and we have to help them, to give them support, technical information about each car, and also to give them support for the charging infrastructure. They can't explain how to charge a car and how to which provider to choose. So we have this from the new car. It's exactly the same, but we want to facilitate the salesman's process.
Okay. Any ideas there from you, Václav? Of course, it's still for you very young. You don't have the enormous amounts of used cars, but anything there in the process or things that you've installed or are planning to install?
So for us, I think things are a bit more simple than for the brands who are transitioning from ICE into electric. And nevertheless, we have done in Polestar, we've done a survey, and we've talked a little bit about it, Johan, and a little bit of mystery shopping around the different dealerships of other brands who are selling both electric cars and ICE vehicles. And it was done on 40 different dealerships of different brands. And what was quite shocking for us was to learn that actually out of the 40, 24 salespeople advised against buying electric vehicle. And that is, it's not that Polestar is looking for the affirmation of okay, we need to do it online if we want to convince the customers and handle it carefully. But I think that the other brands have the challenge that they need to first convince their own dealer network that this is the future. Of course, that for them it means selling an electric car doesn't need so much service, doesn't need the oil changes, filters. You have a cabin filter and you check the electricity circuits. If everything works, the brakes, and off you go. The car is checked. It's very simple and quick. So there's not that much space to make margin in the workshop. I don't know if that is the main reason, or they really need convincing, and it's going to take the next few years until they are actually the first thing that you're going to be offered when you walk into the normal dealership of other big brands is an electric car. So it was quite an interesting finding for us.
There is something we saw with our customer focus groups is that at that time, the customer who came to use EV wanted an EV. They did not hesitate between an EV and an ICE. So this is why sometimes they knew more than the salesman about the car. Then the support for the salesman is to explain how the customer will be able to charge and what are the benefits of the car itself. But about the technology, the customers knew a lot already. Even if they are not early adopters, they took the decision to come to EV. This will also change in the next years, I think.
I think if I can just chip in as well, Johan, especially around Václav's comment around the behavior of the salespeople, I think equally, if you like, trying to keep my feet firmly on the ground here, we have to be mindful of the fact that the salespeople will be trying to sell what they've got. And as a lot of these manufacturers and dealers are morphing into EVs, in a situation we find ourselves now where there is such a radical shortage, these behaviors will also influence them promoting what they know they can get and what they know they can sell. And sat here in the UK, virtually every automotive advert now is the manufacturers promoting their EVs. But we all know in reality that when you go and visit their facilities, that actually what they've got are still forecourts full of petrol and diesel vehicles. And therefore, I suspect that salespeople's behaviour is reflecting supply. Just my thought for what it's worth. I don't think they're bad people, Vaclav.
I don't think that either.
No, indeed. And I think we have to acknowledge as well that for salespeople, it has become more complex over the years. All brands have launched enormous amount of different vehicles, segments. Then there is powertrains. There was hybrids, plug-in hybrids. So it has become much more complex. And the last comment from Mike, yeah, there you've got a very complete list of what they actually all should do or be helping the customer. I think we can conclude in general that I think personally that the EV advantages are there also in used. I think there still needs a time that we need to help the customer to understand, because their perception. If you talk just to friends, the family, you talk about EVs, you hear the strangest things they say. So there is this perception is completely not in line with what we know. A battery is much better. There are loads of opportunities. When you've got an EV of 120,000 kilometers, there's still not a lot of service. Not a lot can go basically wrong. So there are a lot of opportunities, but a lot to be done there as well. I would like to maybe ask a last question to Vaclav and Olivier. In a previous poll, we've asked whether leasing companies were conservative on their residual value setting or forecast, where the majority said yes, they are, whether they are completely or not. So I would like to give the salespeople, Vaclav and Olivier, a bit of just the last comment on what would you advise them? Why should they not be as conservative as they are now?
I can start easily because I don't agree with the comments. We work with leasing companies since years. I'm also in charge of fleet, and we really discuss about residual value. And we did really see an evolution on their confidence on EV since 2 years. And some leasing companies, because they have also strong commitments on CO2 and EV, they have really uplifted the residual values in the last 2 years. If the product is good, if the new product is good, the range is good, then the residual value is good. The residual value, the low residual value, I don't say it's a legend, but it's less and less reality.
Good, I'm happy. So, any comments from you, Vaclav?
First of all, I think that all the leasing companies were providing customers with funding to purchase the cars, which are actually costing more than the normal engine. So many customers opt for some way of financing it, are helping us with the adoption of the technology. Because when the car goes into an operational lease, the customer doesn't have the concern about the residual value. Taking it on their shoulders, and we need to work hand in hand with the leasing companies. I understand that there are concerns by the big leasers around the residual value and what's going to happen. I would say it goes a little bit the same like for the normal private buyers. Is the car is much less complex than an ICE vehicle. Diesel engine has 1,500 parts. Electric engine has 15 parts. There is an inverter, there is a battery. I think everybody is focused on the battery state of health, which is one item that can go wrong, obviously, and then it's going to cost a lot of money. On the other hand, there is 100 things that can go wrong on the ICE car, especially around the engine, clutch, not following the service intervals, oil changes, and so on. So there are risks there as well. And overall, I think there is the balance. It's just that on electric cars, you see the one big item, which is the battery, while on the ICE cars, there is plenty of things that can go wrong there as well. So I think the goal of every leasing company is to be realistic. I think we all want to be realistic in terms of what is going to happen. It is not our intention as an OEM to artificially inflate the residual value expectation into, okay, 3 years, 85%, despite that the corona now shows us that we can sell 1-year-old car with 10,000 kilometers for 96% of MSRP. But I think that's not going to last that long, and it's going to this strange period is going to pass. So I don't think that it is an intention of anybody to be unrealistic. We want to have our operational lease competitive. They need to be learning about the technology. We are there to support. We are trying to be transparent with our leasing partners in terms of what is our pricing strategy. From the Polestar perspective, we don't experiment too much with discounts. So also the price stability on the MSRP is something that they are, of course, considering. How likely are the brands to discount? Are there some possibilities in the battery technology that the OEMs could reduce the price by 5-10%, which would kill the RV in turn? I don't think so. I think that OEMs also understand that the RV needs to be stable, and if there are advances in the battery technology, that they are going to be brought into the market gradually. So it's going to be an evolution rather than a revolution. So because nobody wants big surprises, everybody works with tables and with the risk management. So this is how I think that OEMs and leasing companies need to work hand in hand in developing and pioneering the still new technology, we can say.
But the used car market, the used car market evolution also helps and support residual value, because the same that the new car EV new car increased last year, the used car EV market also increased in Europe. We track the figures in 10 countries, and the sales increased by 70%. This means that also newcomers are coming to the used car EVs, and this will also help. We have reduced our stock by 50% this year, so it's running also in the right direction, and this is RV supportive.
Yeah, I can confirm from our side, 100% agree to that.
Okay, Vaclav, Olivier, certainly as representatives of OEMs, a special thanks to be here. It's always a bit of reluctancy from the OEM side, so I'm more than happy that you could join, and thanks for the input. I think we can conclude with the fact that the journey isn't so bad right now, but I think we can optimize along the way for the next few years until the average public, like we have seen in Norway, has automatically confidence because they need to get acquainted with it. So Ian, Olivier, Vaclav, thanks for your contribution, and hopefully see you November in real life in Dublin. Thank you.
Thanks, Johan.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna have just some closing 2 slides basically. One is a sincere thanks to our partners, Autorola, Autovista 24, Stampit, and Auto One. Without them, this would not be possible. Of course, our speakers, I don't know if you have seen it, but 2 of them were in isolation today. I hope you didn't see who it was, but thanks again for them specifically because they were doing an extra job. Thanks to our advisory board, where we have another meeting within 2 weeks, and of course to all the attendees, because it was a very interactive session with a lot of questions. So thanks a lot. The last one, very important to have your agendas. Certainly put the next date in. We've talked about used car supply. We're going to talk about the outlook, and of course within that, because we're still going to have a bit of a lack of supply, as Andrew did give us a perspective that was a bit worse than I thought. Actually, we're also going to talk about sourcing and where we can source cars and what's the optimal way now, and put the date in 16th of November for the Remarketing Forum in Dublin, Ireland. Take the day before to travel there, and don't take a flight too early in the morning on the 17th. That has been proven to be a very good advice for the evening before. So thanks a lot, and hope to see you next time on the 28th of April. Thanks.